Ko mā, kua tai mai mātou e nāne ki te tahi wāhi ko Opotaka, taha o Lake Rotopounamu. We're just going to have a little nosy down this path and see what treasures await us there.
The intake that goes right through those hills and right down to from lake here, Lake Whaitaima, to drive the turbines at the big power station just before Tukanu down the saddle, which when we go back we'll be driving up and past there, and water from the upper waters of the Whanganui keep filling the Rotopounamu, and continuous supply of water for the projects. Could read and write, and the power of documents and the signatures, so he wanted a mission set up there, and the missionary said no. After George Grey had him arrested in 1843, 1847, when he was released with presents and everything, and taken in a naval boat. After he was released, 1847, Rotopounamu was proactive in advising for the structure and the construction of the Opotaka Church down there. And then a couple of years later, Rotopounamu died. People only look at a place and not the whole life and the cause and effect. There was a chief at Rangatira Point, at Rangatira Pa rather, said to Rotopounamu, do not come down the side, people won't like you, won't even last the journey to get down there. So under that advice, for people up that end of the lake that had them under the control, the land and the say and everything else, advised him if he was going to see the paramount chief of TeWhare, limited to the end of the lake, no manner of land on this side or north of Pakawa, that if you see him, they took him by boat to see the paramount chief. The paramount chief shook his head and said, oh, this isn't a good thing, I don't want you here, I'm not going to protect you. Where was the manner of the TeWhare paramounts? It was nil when it came to the Rotopounamus and the threats of other people. So he told Rotopounamu to come over here. And as soon as he came, sent packing by Paramount Chief here, the people in great fear and trepidation realised his pursuers were not far behind, and that's why he hid in the storage pit on the island. The chief's wife sat over the pit. So he literally hid and cowered under the woman's skirts, and that's where he thought, I die, and formulated the beginning, the genesis of the haka. Now I won't go into details of all this, I'll leave in the details with you here, or not here, but when we get back, and you can read the whole course and the island chiefs and everything else. But names will come up that's been on our record journey that I brought up at the northern end of the lake. What the hang have they got even Ngāti Tahu land anything to do with down here? And this is where everything will come together, and the causes and the effects. And,
so this was an ancient village?
No, it wasn't ancient. Diefenbach, does that ring a bell with our Germans?
Diefenbach the painter, the German.
Diefenbach at TeWhare.
Diefenbach
At
Motutere.
Diefenbach came here, and he gave some beads, blue trading beads, blue beads. Those beads, that 1970, were actually excavated in the forest. Diefenbach's beads. They were kept, and still after all that time, from 1840, were able to be excavated here.
So there was a village, at least dating back to 1840?
Yes, but not ancient. When you say ancient, now you took note of that sign we came in of the people in the hapu and that here. what isn't heard, who were the people that controlled all of Rotorua, were a greater population than the whole combined Whaitaima that were living and controlling here. When they went over the hill, the Mananui and that cleared half the power to accommodate them, knowing the town and mana.
This is Ngāti Hikairo who were here.
No, Ngāti Pehi. And when you look at Pehi, mana, history, control, that was all done away with the Horonuku's evidence in court when they gave evidence of their quarry, their places, their
Title
camps
investigations.
and that's when Horonuku, then in desperation, because he had a deal in 1880, and the court hearings were in 1886, but he had a deal with the Crown in 1880 to come out of house arrest. His action and involvement with Te Porori was he would have happily started the whole land wars all over again. That was Horonuku, and at Te Porori he stood, like they always did, a safe distance while the fighting took place, but he had leaders of Maniapoto, leaders of the Waikato people, and had they succeeded with encountered McDonnell's haste to storm the place over the gold and that, all the land wars would have just started at the drop of a hat. Horonuku and his family were put under house arrest, down to Hawke's Bay, house arrest in 1880 with his advisors, the Graces, through missionary influence, did a deal with the Crown. The deal came out was the gift of the mountains, the peaks of the mountains. It wasn't the national park they gave, it was just a tokenism gift of the mountains. When they say, oh, Horonuku and World's First National Park and that, yes, but no, the whole park wasn't part of that. But when Horonuku then get all this land, raise all the people and to get them out of here, Major Kemp, who fought against Te Kooti, was one of the leading people in court, and the people that were here in great vast numbers were the Ngāti Pehi, and Pehi were all connected with Taranaki Maori. They do not exist in your history books and your writing and that, but in the earliest travellers, the maps and everything else, they're all put there. And the stroke of a pen, Horonuku said to the mountain, I don't care about your fires, all these places and that, behold my fires. And that's all the judge wanted, because they had a deal, and Horonuku assured him he'd secure all that land to the Crown, and that displaced and brought other Maori in, mainly in the 1890s for the first time, to give them lands and that transferred, and that as part of that Crown deal. That's when, prior to that, a Royal Commission hearing overthrew Horonuku's claims for about everything else that wasn't nailed down in the region. And that's got the 1890s hearings of the land courts through Horonuku and those, and Te Whaitaima had been taken to an independent Royal Commission hearing, of which the villains in the piece were mainly his son-in-laws and the Graces. A newspaper in 1880 at the time said that they married into an influential woman, never the nice ones or pretty ones, the influential, and they were immediately cutting off all Maori to line their own pockets. So the journeys carries on to here, behold my fires, and completely displaced the entire tribe out of the history books and away from here.
Could you imagine if the mayor of Taupo suddenly turned around and said, right, I'm giving Turangi now to everybody, to someone else. Turangi doesn't belong to you people. I mean, that's virtually what Horonuku said. Right?
And that's what Major Kemp, the Maori Major Kemp, with all his testimony, history and that, on behalf of all the people that got thrown out because of the pipe gesture. Behold my fires. Behold my fires. Anyway, all the nitty gritty, the origin of the haka, and I mentioned that over at Motuapa, how the people there escorted Horonuku, not Horonuku, Mananui, those were not having a bit to get involved with any hostility. Rotopounamu had done enough harm and damage. He was quite happy he wouldn't be just wiped out. But it was those people there that were escorted them to Taranaki. And then he went down and became the great famed Napoleon of the South. Rotopounamu still thought, because he still thought he could do deals with the Crown and settle the Crown to favour his nest into the South Island, or Ngaitahu areas and that there. Yes. So where we stood, but this is quite separate to a settlement that Davey came across, and with his notes and that they were able to still identify fairly well, in fairly good condition, some of the flooring that they excavated about 1970. Got the old brandy bottles and trade beads and things there.
It's incredible they found those blue beads. Hey, look that up. Yeah.
But even those physical proofs there have all disappeared. Whole museum was ransacked, inventory thrown away.
Ngāti Pehi.
Yeah, never heard of them, have you?
Never.
I mean, I know Waipihi stream and that I've heard of the Pehi word, but not the tribe.
And when you start looking at Angus the painter and that, some of the principal people and their connections and that are all narrated in some of his paintings and sketches. What are we doing? No, what are we doing?
Yeah.
We're looking at a sign giving us some history of Motuopuhi.
1846.
Yes, people living there. But according to the sign, the power was overcome in the 1820s. So
It was. Things were knocked down, they were rebuilt and reoccupied. A threat had been removed by 1844. Chief Mananui, when he had enough allies, was from 1842, 1844, slaughtering, killing, especially those influenced by the missionaries through treachery done by the missionary converts that Te Huhu saw treachery being done. But that's a part of it. So the Treaty Waitangi didn't stop war parties, didn't stop slaughter and killing in the central districts around here, and threats are taken right over into Taranaki. So another misconception is like Samuel Marsden preached the gospel, Murray's fell down on his knees, all converted. Not one for 10 years. And another myth is that Treaty Waitangi, peace was made, agreement was made, and the central tribes, war parties and killing and that still carried on for several years after signing the treaty. But they're not holding this up. It's just if colonials are involved in any fighting, that's the terrible things that have been promoted in history. The other history of Maori among doing it against themselves, their own people, that's been suppressed. That's a suppressed history. 1849, if this was so tapu, they'd leased the area for, they'd let permission for a Pākehā from Patia, from down south with the sheep and that droving through, to live and occupy that himself as a Pākehā. Why is it now the mindset 2022, that's tapu, no one goes here, no one goes there, you're an owner, you can't go there. This is a distortion and a twisting of the historical fact of narrative that Maori did not have throughout their history. Poatarawa, if it was overrun once, it was continuously rebuilt and occupied by other people, other groups and that. They saw a place of safety and protection. But getting back to this, what has Ngāti TeWhare got with this? Now, we're talking about Ngāti Maru coming in 1828, and they sacked the place. They sacked the place, and they used the canoes from the other end of the lake by Ngāti Waiwai, add their canoes, and they believe one of them, because he had a grievance, allowed and had to deal with Ngāti Maru, so he got his own people off before this place was sacked. And that's when the chief and others were taken out as prisoners and lined up and killed. But the chief himself, he leapt off the cliff into the lake and started swimming out, but they caught up with him and killed him there. And another chief in the lake here was part of the events that took place. Mananui was, and particularly his brother Iwikau, had given safety and protection to Ngāti Rokawa. Ngāti Rokawa allied themselves with Ngāti Maru, but to get Ngāti Rokawa safe passage to meet Mananui, it was Ngāti TeWhare. It wasn't Parikawa, because Parikawa had been virtually wiped out. So even to this day, the two are sort of hyphenated, Parikawa TeWhare. And it was at the time TeWhare that escorted and offered protection for Ngāti Rokawa, who they were related to come down. And Mananui didn't want anything to do with it and the threats and that, so he encouraged them to come over here. But he held their woman, the principal woman, that as hostage. Mananui did. So he held several women hostage while he went to join the plundering, the slaughter and that down at Taranaki. But they were a bit unsure, so Iwikau sent a couple of scouts over, and when they came over the saddle here, they saw this place and the houses and that burning. It was the second 1828, and when we reached word back there, that when Rokawa came back, Mananui did agree to release the hostages, where in fact they killed, and the people they killed in that, the hostages, the woman there, was supposed to be killed too, but Mananui didn't allow that.
I think that's the time to end.
We have something to eat. Pattern society, and you can't isolate one thing from the other. In the past, it's
So that track does lead down to the Moana. You launch a kayak there, but you wouldn't get a boat on a trailer down there. Not wide enough.
But you even notice signs. All this gives impression of there are a couple of house sites, period. I got the report on this, but this place wasn't considered too significant in the history of things. It was the island that was focused on right into the 1840s.
So the women that were
hostage,
held captive were put onto that island?
No, Mananui kept them with his pa down, hostage down at Waitanui. That was just so as people that he had alliances with, that if they were attacked, and the attacking certainly took place here, but Mananui took most of the people and principal people down Whanganui, Taranaki area. Thank goodness one or two were able to limp out alive. Nearly the rest of the balance of Te Whaitaima were completely slaughtered through Mananui's ill-advised alliances and decisions. So all you're getting is a few survivors and the families and that came later. And And all you're getting is the descendants and their history here. Not the fact is, like Parikawa, most of the Tūwhareitawa were completely annihilated with Mananui's wrong decisions and bad alliances when he went down to Taranaki. That's why Wakefield, that when he came here, there was hardly any population down the southern end of the lake, and people were slowly returning in dribs and drabs. Most of the tribal people of Tūwhareitawa were killed.
So Kurapoto, are they still a...
No.
Go closer on the other side of him.
Do
so I
they
can pick up
have
what you're
any
saying.
kind of
Just on this
standing...
side.
Not with those alliances. Their only standing was that they when we were at Te Porori, we saw the people that were taking Ngāti Hotu and that, they had the Kurapoto links, and they paved the way to allow the sons, descendants of our Tūwhareitawa, to establish themselves down the southern end of the lake. It was Kurapoto, but the people for the Kurapoto history today have been so brainwashed with modern rewriting of history and these Bibles that are looked at as genuine tribal history. They've been so there that they don't even look at Kurapoto as the ancestor. They look at later hapu branches came out.
So, with what's...
Afternoon.
The old past sites at Waitahanui or at Rotongaio, those were Kurapoto sites, right? Were they Kurapoto past? They weren't Tūtemahuta past sites.
Tūtemahuta only came yesterday. Tūtemahuta didn't exist in the formation. They've jumped into whakapapa. Lenny Johns and that wrote a book, Tūtemahuta, on which they dragged 95% of Te Rangita and other people's history to create a book,
So
just to put them in.
Oust Ngāti Kurapoto, that's what I'm trying to get at. What happened to them? How come they left their pās at Te Whitu o Te Marama or Te Taro o Te Marama or whatever the names were?
Ngāti Kurapoto came from Arawa, and I think they established themselves here as a result of a murder over at Rotorua. They're all Arawa, but not a whit of them, not a finger of them, were for generations Tūwhareitawa. But the alliance with Tūwhareitawa, after Tūwhareitawa there was fighting, escorted them and cleared the way, cleared out Ngāti Hotu, and provided support to establish themselves down the Kaimanawa and the southern end of Taupo, the southern end of the lake.
So
And you go there, go there.
Who drove them out then?
Who drove who?
Kurapoto. Who drove them out?
Kurapoto was never driven out. Kurapoto was the standing tribe of the Marais at the northeast end of the lake. They held that balance till about 1900, and then with the creation of places calling themselves Tūwhareitawa Trust Board and that, and with the lake and the agreements with the Crown, they've been a generation to wiped out the seniority of things, of the position. Now they've been replaced complete with Te Rangita. You know, it's been around the lake, or it's all Te Rangita. And the various hapu, like the at Nukuhau, the Rahoto hapu, and that, people only go to that, and not the ancestor. It's like completely removing Tūwhareitawa from here, or Tia, and just look later in history, and that's what's happened with Kurapoto. That's Isn't this a sort of another twist of history? of how mixed up our jigsaw. Our jigsaw's just been places with a piece here, that's then brought and rewrote everyone into it to elevate. In modern times, people that were never there had no significance, or if they were, have just been elevated by later individuals.
So when you say two Timaruka got there yesterday, are you talking about they were there from the 20th century onwards?
No, they were there from the 19th century. Kuraputu's there in the 16th century.
Oh.
That's a big gap, and this is a distortion, a vicious distortion that history rewriters have made. And then you look at individuals that have profited from that with these alliances between Te Whaitaima Trust Board and the rewriting to bring out that book Tuta Mahuta in treaty claims, money for researchers. One researcher right at Whanui was given $60,000 for his pains.
Well, he was clever.
The three people, three hapu, and we'll carefully look at them on the signage, and that you recorded, was Ngāti Waiwai, W-A-E, Ngāti Wi, W-I, and Ngāti Tama. That's why Ngāti Tama associated from Rotorua and that, and tried to connect the links via Rokawa to Te Whaitaima and these places today. But those are the three hapu. But are they promoted? Are they present? Are they even their owner's descendant, or aware that their owner's here? This is all before the land court decisions, and Ngāti Pehi was the dominant people. They were all the links in that Taranaki. I see Jeffrey's found the Ropraha pages, I think.
Oh, good on you. Good on you, Jeffrey.
So I did have them.
I'm just interested that Opotaka was allied with Ngāti Raukawa.
This is again the strange thing, but they both had to get the escort on the way through Te Koheira, Ngāti Te Koheira, to go down through lakes directly to Mananui, who immediately moved them on. Not my problem.
Blanket, sacred, keep away. There's all kinds of tapu, but to put a blanket prohibition that even the owners are excluded from their own lands, to me it's like, well, that's whack.
The only little bit they'll ever get as owners is from the record keepers. That's all it's almost standing up like.
Well, that's
they don't get a little bit out of Grace's book, a little bit out of Hosking, and which doesn't give the history. It only gives the excavation.
To me, that doesn't give enough return to owning something. Just having someone talk about the history of it, that's not adequate.
Of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't.
But this is all. It's like alienation, eh? We're alienating ourselves from our own lands. Why? And by the agreements with all the power companies, that's the other reason, because of the inlet here, they don't want anyone on the lake in case they end up down the tunnel blocking their turbines. We went to a Lake Taupo Forest Trust meeting once, and they say, well, we've had a lot of feedback from whānau that they feel isolated and alienated from their own forests. I said, well, small wonder when they can't get on there, other than at times that when there's no one from the forestry industry working. So you got to go after hours, and in the weekends it's locked up, and you can't get in anyway. So it's no wonder people are getting frustrated after generations of being locked out of their own land. I mean, and that's the vast majority of their lands. Waitaha Nui is just a gateway, and And so, and it's the trustees of these land blocks who have imposed these kind of blanket rules and prohibitions on their own beneficiaries.
We're just looking at the hapu names here, and one is the modern one, it doesn't exist, and then it says for benefit of reserve, for benefit of Whaitaima and all the people in New Zealand. Yet Whaitaima was never here. Now they make out that Ngāti Peihi is the sub-tribe of Whaitaima, but they do have to acknowledge Ngāti Peihi. They just call them a sub-tribe of Whaitaima. But the big connections and dominance from the lake on all the western side right down was Ngāti TeWhare. And they had the control of everyone that went through the areas. Oh well.
All right. We're going to keep going?
Yep.
Okay.
Kia ora anō, we're at the outskirts of Rotopounamu, and we're just going to take a look at an old site there by the lake. So we've got about 20-minute walk and we'll be there.
We were over here before, not and that pāpā was called Whaitaima TeWhare, I think was the name of that. And Elder pointed out one there that was just left. Before that. That's a drum, yes, it's a drum.
Pew pew. Pity pity. Look them this colour. Crown fern.
Wind's everywhere. Here, there and everywhere. Lake Rotopounamu, the greenstone, was often literally the interpretation of how the lake on some days with the reflections off the hills and the trees gave it a greenish appearance. Whaitaima, he was killed and another chief was in the lake swimming and he was killed, but they didn't recover the body. But when they took them as prisoners before that, with others they killed, they were unaware he was wearing an invaluable greenstone pendant. And when they killed him, his body, couldn't retrieve his body immediately sunk. And so about 3 days later, Iwikau and others recovered his body and still had the pendant. That's what went into the TeWhare family and was a treasured relic until someone swimming, a woman, lost it in the lake. To this day, it was said that the pendant, the greenstone, came from the Arawa canoe, from the islands. But with all these legends and stories, greenstone, Pounamu, was discovered and was only limited to the South Island, not to the islands or anything else. So this is where later tales and migration tales and that get the add-on and the add-ons. But it's just that they recovered the body. They took the pendant back to the for themselves. So that was one of the stories regarding the sacking and the killing of the people there in 1828. One of the people of the revenge was that the chief there that they were trying to single out for his mana was in revenge for relations concerning Rokawa that were killed in 1821, several years before. That's how they dared to deal with Ngāti Maru, who normally wouldn't have any track with anybody. That started the whole thing off. Yes. So we go from here to another beach, and that would be as far as we go. I'll point out some things that were of some historic interest there, connecting the people of the lake. Would have probably taken even generations at both ends, Rotorua and Taupo, before they even came across this. I've just been walking through to connect the two through mountain tracks that they came across the lake. So it's interesting to see who the first person and when they found this place. But it wasn't a place that they had any settlement or habitation signs or defensive works. That was at the lakes itself. Right.